Welcome everyone to the call, and thank you today for being a part of this call. And we're very excited about this vendor that's in Agora. What's exciting about this is, for those of you that are an independent contractor and you make money, this is very, very important for you because this can really help you with your taxes. And this program, I haven't found another program out there like this. When you get into it, you're going to see some of the details of what sets this program apart from other programs such as Expensify and some other apps that are out there. But this is a very, very useful tool for you, for any business owner, or you as a rep, for tracking your taxes and how to save money. And there's a special caveat on here which I'll let Emilio get into. But Emilio, he came to us and brought this opportunity to us. I thought this is going to be a perfect thing for our advisors. So Emilio, maybe kind of tell why you started the app and then kind of go into details, and I'll control the screen here for you. But thank you for coming to the call today.
Yeah, sure. No, thank you for having us. So basically, the reason why we created this app was it came from need. A few years ago, several years ago actually, I had my job and I had a business on the side, and I started learning about all the tax deductions that you get as a business that you don't get as an employee, and how you can actually take those deductions and put them against your W-2. So at that time, I was using a computer-based software, and honestly, it worked great. But my problem was that one particular year, and I remember it like it was yesterday, November 11th, my hard drive crashed on that computer. And there went everything I had for the whole year. Now, I'm talking before the cloud was the cloud. No one knew about the cloud, so it was a computer-based, it was installable on your computer. So at that point, I decided I needed to do something where the data was saved on a server somewhere out there, that if something happened to my computer, all my data, all my deductions for the whole year were not lost. One, because I didn't want to go back and have to recreate the whole year. And two, in accordance to IRS rulings, you're supposed to have what they call timely records of your expense. And by timely, the IRS defines timely as within 24 hours of the expense happening. So in theory, recreating everything I had would not have been valid. I had a report where I had some of it, so I was able to recreate it. But if you get audited at any point by the IRS and they determine that it wasn't recorded on a timely basis, they can basically disallow it. And if anyone on this call likes the IRS or thinks that the IRS is not going to try to get as much as they can out of every one of us, then this is probably not for you. But if you agree with us that we want to pay our fair share of taxes, but not, as a friend of mine said, no, don't tip them, just pay what you really owe, then this is perfect because it'll help you track every single expense that you have on a daily basis. Within probably 10 seconds, you can log everything in there, and it's all IRS compliant, and it does capture all the questions that the IRS might have. So Vince, you were talking earlier about Expensify, and there's other apps out there, Concur. There's several, even Intuit has their own nowadays, but the reality is that those are really good to keep track of your expenses, but they don't have the mandatory questions that the IRS is going to ask for in case of an audit. And that was the first thing I wanted to have on our program, because one of our partners was actually audited, and on one of his expenses, he didn't have all the info that the IRS required, and they went ahead and disallowed not just that expense, but that whole category of expenses. So it was, for him, it was very costly. So that's when we decided to say, you know what, those fields that the IRS is going to require, those are going to be mandatory fields for us. And that's the basics of that. Then we also added the picture capability of your receipts, which again, there are several apps out there that will let you do that. And the reason that's really important is because nowadays, 99% of your receipts are going to be printed in thermal paper. And the problem with thermal paper is that after a year or so, it's going to be really, really hard to read what's in there, let alone 2 or 3 years later. You pull that piece of paper, it's going to be totally blank. Now, that's not an excuse for the IRS. If you get audited or whatnot, they're going to want to see the receipt. And if you pull out a thermal paper that's just blank on both sides, they're not gonna say, oh, okay, it's been a while, so I'm guessing it basically the thermal disappeared. So they're not going to take that reason. So again, it's in our mind, it's something that we wanted to, for lack of a better word, to dumb it down so that everyone could use it and no one could actually get themselves into a bind or trouble because they were using it. That's why we put all those safety nets in there. Basically, once you have an expense, you're going to have all the categories and subcategories that are approved by the IRS, where you can click on, put all the information of basically the 5 questions that the IRS is going to demand, which is where, how much, and when, which all of those you can get from a credit card statement. But if you don't have with whom and the reason or purpose why, those are the triggers for the IRS to disallow. So those 5 are, for us, are mandatory. So if someone doesn't have one of those 5 questions responded, we're basically not going to let them register that record. And the whole idea of this is that you do it throughout the year. And at the end of the year, it's very simple. You click on reports, and within 2 clicks, it'll export an Excel or PDF with every single expense that you had. If you want a summary or if you want detailed, with the category, subcategory, all the information that you need, you give it to the tax preparer. And I've had my tax preparers literally say, dude, I love you, but I hate you, because I love that you give me everything organized, but I hate it because I can't charge you anything else because I get your taxes done in 20 minutes. So that's our goal for people, right? So the other thing we added to this, Vincent, we were talking about this a little bit earlier, is the mileage tracker, right? Mileage to the average American that has a home-based business or a side hustle or whatever you want to call it, mileage is the #1 expense that someone can write off. The problem is we don't track it. We're very, very bad at tracking it. And we do have the GPS-enabled tracking, and we're actually, Vince, as we were mentioning, this week we've submitted the new version of the app, and through going back and forth with Apple and Android, and you know how that goes, it should be in the marketplace here in the next week or so. But one of the virtues that it's going to have, just talking about mileage, is that you're going to have 3 options for mileage. You can either enter your mileage manually, where you're going to open the app and say, my starting mileage was this much, and I left from my home office to client site, and this is my ending mileage, and it'll calculate the number of miles and then multiply it by the allowed rate from the IRS for deductions. That's the first one. The second one is when you get in the car, you turn on the GPS. It'll track you. When you stop the GPS. It'll capture your location, the different addresses through a partnership with Google Maps, and it'll calculate your mileage automatically and set on your rate and how much money you're actually writing off. And the third one is on this screen that you're looking at, right there where it says mileage on the right, there's going to be an option, a button that you can click on. And if that button is turned on, anytime you're moving at more than 5 miles an hour, it's going to start tracking your mileage. And then at the end of the day, you just have to say, okay, yes, it was business, or it was medical, or it was charity, or it was personal. Because that's the other thing most people don't know. You can actually write off charitable mileage and medical mileage. So if you have to go to the doctors like 2 or 3 times a week, or chiropractor, or whatever it is, that's deductible for medical expenses. If you're volunteering at a kitchen or whatever it is, that's also deductible. And obviously mileage for business, it's the biggest one, right? Now, the one thing that we always talked about, this number at the bottom that says 60,288, I believe it says, my screen is a little bit small, but that's basically your running total, okay? So that for us works a lot in a couple of multi-level and network marketing organizations that have used this. It works because it lets people know that maybe they're not making all the money they want to make through the business, but it's going to show them how much they're actually saving in taxes, which they would not be saving if they didn't have a side business. So this has helped us a lot for, not us, but other companies, for recruiting and retention. Whenever they have a monthly expense or whatever it is, and they're not doing as much as they thought they would, this will be something that you can remind them and just say, hey, pull up your app. How much are you saving? Okay, if you don't continue with your business, those write-offs are gone. So it helps a lot on that side. And basically it helps people also know where they're at, right? So this is an example for someone that is using the expenses very clearly, but is not using the mileage, because mileage is at 0, right? So it's an app that we created basically because I got intrigued many years ago about all the differences in taxes that existed in the U.S. and all the incentives that the IRS has for people to create small businesses, home-based businesses, side hustle, part-time, whatever you want to call it. But that's what we wanted to do. And then just make it really simple for them to create a PDF, an Excel, CVS, whatever it is, and export that expense so that the client would get the benefit of that. Now, Vince, do you want to talk about the pricing, or you want me to go a little bit into that?
No, you're doing good. So if anyone has any questions, they can ask also. But, this is a very powerful tool. And what I do like about it down here is at the bottom there, it's showing how much money you're saving right there as you go. So as you're using this app, it's actually showing you your savings right there. And then can you tell maybe a little bit the difference of Expensify? I know I've used Expensify before, and I know, Expensify is, maybe you can explain how this is a better app for taxes than that. And I know Expensify is more for just document expenses, but it's not necessarily a tax app. Can you kind of go into detail about that?
Yeah, so you basically hit it on the head. Expensify is a great tool for tracking expenses, and it's well used within the corporate world, because when you have a spending account, it's an easy way for corporates to track those expenses. That doesn't mean that that's what's going to be given to prepare your taxes. So the main difference is that Expensify is built, in my mind, more with the corporate world in mind than the individual that has a employed, home business, network marketing, multi-level, whatever you want to call it, direct sales. That's where we are tailored to. That's what we built this for the person that has to track their own expenses for tax purposes, not for just tracking their expenses, which obviously it can as well, but for you to be able to document and sustain your taxes and basically be bulletproof if at any point anyone gets audited. You're going to have basically all your expenses in detail by line item with a picture of the receipt. If it's mileage, with a map. If you do it through the GPS, what you drove, when you drove it, what time, what was the purpose. So the way we see this, I use the analogy of saying, hey, if the IRS is going to knock at your door, we want to treat it as if there's, and it might not be the best, it might be the best comparison, but if there's a burglar trying to go into a house, right, and you get to the neighborhood and there's one house that the lights are off, the lawn is not taken care of, the bushes are through half the size of the window, everything looks kind of abandoned, if you will, and the one next door where everything is trimmed, there's a big sign that says beware with the dog, alarm system, lights are on. Which one do you think the burglar is going to go into? It's kind of the same idea here. Remember, when you have an IRS audit, we want to bulletproof. And basically the job of any auditor from the IRS is to recover money. That's it. Their job is to go out there and find money that was not reported and capture it back. Well, the second they go into an audit, and I have a friend of mine that has been audited 3 times since we did this, and the last time they just basically said, oh, are you the one that lives on this street? Yeah, okay, just disregard the notice. Basically, when they get to you and you give them an Excel spreadsheet or PDF detailing every single expense with all the information in a report that has the date, the name, the purpose, the amount, the whole 9 yards, and say, oh, by the way, if you need a picture, we can click on it and provide the picture. They're going to come in and in 10 minutes say, you know what, you're too clean. There's no sense of me trying to go deeper and find something. I might find something, but it's going to take me a lot longer as an auditor to find something with someone that's detailed and has the records than to just turn around and go to someone that has a dark house with big bushes and no lights, right? If it's all a mess and you have everything in a shoebox and they ask for it and you just provide a shoebox of receipts, they're going to go through that with a fine-tooth comb. If you provide them a report that's totally detailed and has all the items and pictures, they're just going to, most of the cases, just going to say, you know what, you're good, we'll go to the next one. So that's the basic difference. One is created more for tracking expenses. Ours is more created towards protecting you and helping you get every dime that you need or you deserve to get back from your business from the IRS.
That's powerful. So as you guys can see, this is a very, very powerful tool. You know, a lot of people, when they come into owning their own business or being a 1099 or working opportunities like Agora, MLMs, or their own home-based business, you know, you don't really realize the power of this until, you know, the tax person comes knocking at your door, or you may not be taking full advantage of all the savings you can get. And, you know, this is tracking everything, you know, when you go out to dinner, your mileage, you know, when it's business expenses and things like that. So one thing also, when you come over here, we have the Visit Special Offer site. And he did say they're going to be changing the look a little bit of some what you see here. But once you go in here, so if you do want this, you just click on this right here. Can you kind of tell them what to do here and what takes place?
Yeah, so basically our regular price is $7.99. We have this agreement with Agora where it's $5.99, and it's a set price. It's $5.99 a month. Every month it will not go up. in price. By the way, that $5.99 is also tax deductible. But anyone that wants to register just goes in and creates their name, last name, email, a login ID, and their password. You click save, and it will take you to the payment page. Enter your info, and you have your account set up. And then you can download the app from Google Store or the iTunes Store, and just use that user ID and password.
Yeah, very easy to use. I actually have this on my phone. It's very easy to use. I love it. I love being able to take the pictures, the mileage. Very powerful. Are there any questions out there? Like I said, this is a very powerful tool, and some people, they don't really think about it until the IRS person comes knocking on the door, or you may not be taking full advantage of the tax breaks you can get, or your mileage, things like that. So, this is something we're very excited to offer in Agora to help you guys out as advisors out there. And, as you start making more and more money, this becomes more and more important to you. When you're going out there and you're setting up, different appointments with business owners, or you're on the phone, you're using your home as an office. I mean, there's lots of deductions out there you want to take advantage of, especially, especially if you're not having taxes drawn directly out of your paycheck and your 1099, you're getting all the money. Then this is where this comes into play really powerfully. So if there's no questions, it looks like you did a good job. So there is commissions on this, and also if you have any questions, you can also call this number right there to get more information. And very, very powerful tool, very helpful for those that are 1099 getting paid. When you start making more money, this becomes very, very important. So this is a very good partnership with us. I believe this is something that's very useful for everyone out there. Emil, is there any other things you want to go over?
No, we're very excited about the new version coming out here in the next few days. Again, it's pretty much out of our hands. It's up to Apple and Android to approve and release the new version. But very excited because it's going to be even sweeter than it is. It's easier to use now.
Yeah, and you can watch this video on here. We have, all the information goes back over it again. Like I said, we're recording this phone call for those that weren't able to be on the call. This will be going out in an email form, and then we'll be putting this as a training thing back here. But it's very simple, very simple in usage, but powerful for how much it can save you. So, Mila, we appreciate you being on the call today, and if there's no questions, then we'll just end it here. I think you did a good job. If there's no questions, that means you did a really good job.
Vince, this is Mike Driggers. I actually have a question.
Yeah. Okay.
So I know a lot of people are doing these new type of things like Lyft and Uber and DoorDash and all these. I think this would be an effective tool for them. Because they all are 1099 from those systems. So I'm just wondering what may be an approach to talk to some of these folks to get them on this tool.
I think the approach is going to be the same as anyone that has a side business. Is, hey, now that you have an extra income, do you know how taxes work when you're a business? And the easiest way I explain it to everyone is I always do two sides and basically say, okay, you got two tax systems in the U.S., right? And some people say one is for the informed and one is for the uninformed. But basically it's a W-2 and a 1099. So when you're an employee and you make $1,000, do you get a check for $1,000? And they'll always say, heck no. I said, yeah, right. They take about 25% off in taxes. That's $250. They give you a check for about $750, right? And let's say that your expenses were $700. You're left with $50. And they'll agree with that, right? And then you go, okay, the second option is when you're a business owner. As a business, if you have sales for $1,000, guess what? The first thing you do is you take out your expenses, which is the $700. You're left with $300. Now you pay taxes out of that $300. That 25% is $75. you're left with 225. Let me ask you a question. Which one is better? Right? And once they say that, you basically tell them, hey, you know what? Most people don't know there's two tax systems, but even less people know that if you're an employee and you start a side business, you can actually cross some of your expenses over to the business. And yeah, maybe you don't get to the 225, but you might get to 100, 175, 150, 175. Which one's better? So that's the way normally I kind of open their eyes and then just say, hey, by the way, just because you can do it doesn't mean you go out and do it all willy-nilly. You obviously have to prove to the IRS that this is a business and not you just trying to take advantage of the IRS loopholes. So to be able to document all of that, you need an app that's going to help you track, especially if they're doing Uber gives you kind of a report of the mileage that you drove while you had someone with you, but not from when you left your home office to whatever area you're working on. I don't know if like Amazon Eats or deliveries, all of those will track your mileage or not. I think those don't. But
yeah, they don't. They have like a mobile app they recommend, but it doesn't really. I mean, it calculates your miles, but like even when you're out there, you stop to have lunch, right? I mean, that's on your work time. I don't know if you track that, and then all the just all the mileage in general, and then just having the business, your cell phone, writing off your cell phone for usage, the car, well, the car's with mileage, but, other things that are outside of that of running a business that people don't think about.
Right. So that's the whole idea with this. So, for instance, for me, I travel a lot. I have offices in Dallas and in Houston, so I drive to Houston, but I take the mileage, and instead of documenting all my travel expenses, I use the option that the IRS gives you, which is the per diem amount. And per diem basically means this is the amount that you can get, that you can write off on a daily basis, and we don't need receipts. But if you spend more than that, that's on you. So there's a lot of different ways of doing expenses. And by the way, this has been part of the update that we did is because all the tax rule changes that we had for 2018. So that's part of the changes and updates that we've done. So like meals and entertainment. Entertainment is not allowed anymore, but meals are. So now you need a little bit more detail in there and know how to work around it. But there are definitely a lot of different ways of using this app, and the idea is exactly that. Don't bounce between 2 or 3 different apps. Just use one and get one report at the end of the year.
Yeah, for everything versus just mileage. Yeah.
Yep.
Because I think those are great candidates.
One thing also is I love people that think really, really big, and I know, Mike, you're one of those people. And don't forget, guys, we have a lot of reps or advisors in Agora that, you can actually set up a deal if you can work your way up the chain with Lyft or with Uber, and potentially, TaxSaver app becomes their choice, and you might be able to help broker a deal, and we could talk to corporate. So, with a lot of the different programs we have in Agora, we have some people that, end up with making some big corporate deals, which could be huge. You land something like that. So just keep that in mind, guys. You always have the ability to negotiate big deals and bring big deals to the table and take a product like this and potentially get it in with a higher, they go, wow, this is better than what we have, like you were saying, Mike, if this is a better system, what they have. So are there any other questions out there?
Hey, this is Troy.
Yeah, Troy.
So I apologize. I got on the call a little late, and you might have covered this, but I was curious. I know that one of the businesses that we had a number of people that had their own vehicles and others that had company vehicles, and it was sometimes difficult getting them to track their mileage appropriately. So I would think this would be a really good tool for a business when they have a bunch of employees maybe in the past that weren't tracking their miles particularly well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so in that case, yes, you have to have obviously an account for each one so that they can track their own mileage, but you make sure they have the automated tracking and that the business owner has access to the user ID and password so he can pull the reports. But if they turn on the fully automated, anytime they're going over 5 miles an hour, it's gonna be tracking it. So they don't need, and in essence, it's gonna be a way where they don't even need to do anything, just as long as they have their cell phone with them.
Do you have any corporate plans? I mean, do you have when somebody maybe has a large fleet of employees, do you have any kind of discounts or anything available?
Not right now, but it's something that we can always get on a phone call and just work something out.
Yeah, those are negotiated separately, so anything's negotiable. Depends on, there's a lot of factors. How many people? How big is it? There's a lot of factors, and they already have a great deal as it is now. So,
yeah. For instance, I have a client in Florida that does tax software, and he has 200 CPAs. He wants a white label so that he can put it out there. Obviously, at that point, it's totally different pricing.
So just remember that, guys, on some of these deals, if you end up with a really, like we have some people working some really big accounts. We got one guy working with a McDonald's chain and, some larger chains. In those situations, that's when you get on the phone with me and with Emilio, you end up with a larger situation. And then it's just a matter of negotiations. But either way, this product right here, I brought it in here to help you guys. I felt this was something very important for you as advisors, helping you with your taxes, because sometimes this is never even covered. I've seen some people in MLMs and direct sales organizations that make a ton of money, and they don't know how to take care of their taxes, and they owe the IRS a bunch of taxes, and they could have saved a bunch of money in their deductions, and they didn't realize that, and, they end up in a bind when they shouldn't have been in a bind. Where this will, preventative going into it, as you start making a lot of money with Agora, that you have the ability to come in here and do these deductions and track it and make it real simple and easy. This is a very, very powerful tool for you personally as an advisor in Agora and the money you're making in Agora. So hopefully this helped everyone today, and I'll open up for another question. Is there any other questions? If not, then we'll did a good job. Emilio, thank you for being on the call today.
No problem. Thank you guys for having me. And if anyone has any questions, my email is Emilio, EMILIO, @taxsaverusa.com. That's going to be the easiest one.
Okay. And if you, I can get that in here also in the contact information. Also in the marketplace, just to let you guys know, it's down here. We have it right down here in the marketplace. Sometimes it moves around, but there it is right there, the tile. Sometimes we change the tiles a little bit, but, save money on your taxes. Let me see here one other thing. And with that being said, thank you for everyone being on the call today.